legislators, Mr. Pat Proctor.
Are y'all getting sick of winning yet?
No.
Okay. Now, what an awesome few weeks, right? And what an incredible few weeks. In a lot of ways, what the president's doing at the national level is going to mean more work for us at the state level, because as the president tries to get us back to this idea of federalism, this idea of pushing power as close down to the people as he possibly can, it's going to mean more responsibility at the state level and at the local level to pick up services that have been done not so well at the federal level for a long time. And so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is going to, I'd just like you to keep that in mind, because as we're working for you in Topeka, we're keeping that in the back of our mind, that we're going to have to pick up more responsibility, and that's going to cost money. So first of all, there are a lot of new faces here. So for the folks that I haven't had a chance to meet before, I'm Pat Proctor. I serve you in the legislature, Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth, Kickapoo, and then for the last 3 years, I've been serving the state of Kansas as the chair of the elections committee as well. And thank you. I've been talking about elections a lot, so if you want to talk about that in question and answers, I will. But what I really want to get to is what's important right here in Leavenworth. Not that that's not important, but some of the stuff that I told you I was going to be doing for you. We are going really fast, really fast. Normally, the way, the Constitution says that the legislature will be in session for 90 days a year. And usually, what that means is we take those 90 days and we spread them out between January and May, and we take a few breaks in there so that the revisers that are making amendments and making bills can catch up with us, and so that we can kind of do the behind-the-scenes negotiations. Well, this year, we're doing 90 days. We started in January 13th, and we're going to be done on April 12th. We are doing 90 days exactly. We're pushing through. And so that means that we got to really move out. We've got to really move out on what we're doing. We have just a couple weeks ago finished what's called turnaround. If you remember your Schoolhouse Rock, I'm Just a Bill, right? Yes, your bill starts in one house. It has a committee hearing. Then it goes to the floor and it's voted on, and then it goes to the other house. So if it started in the House of Representatives, it goes through that in the House, and then it goes over to the Senate, and then it has to go through all of it again, right? And if it started in the Senate, it goes through a committee in the Senate, and on the floor in the Senate, and then it has to go over to the House. It goes through all those things again. Well, not last week, but the week before was turnaround, which is where we pass out all the bills that we have left in the House, and we send them over to the Senate, and then they pass out all the bills that they have left in the Senate, and they send them over to us, and then we work on each other's bills. And for the House, the first half is really busy, because we have 125 people. They show up, they're all raring to go, they've all got ideas. We got to work a ton of bills. There's something around right now, 450 bills just on the House side that have been filed. Not all of those get committee hearings, and not all those get passed out, but we work on all those and we send them over to the Senate. Well, the poor Senate over on the other side, they've only got 40 people and half as many committees. And so the second half is really busy for them, because we flood them with all our bills, and they got to figure out how they're going to they have to prioritize. They have to figure out what they're going to work on, what they're not going to work on, and get those done and pass them out of their house so that we can get them to the governor and she can veto half of them, and then we can override them. Just being honest. So the number one thing, the absolute number one priority in both houses right now is property taxes. We all heard it when we were out knocking on doors, and our Democrat opponents were talking about, abortion and saving democracy, whatever that means. We were out talking to our neighbors about we are going to do something about property taxes. And so that is the number one thing that's going on in the legislature right now. So over in the Senate, they have a bill to cut, because we have a state mill levy of 20 mills that all goes to the schools, and then we have another 1.5 mill levy that goes to all our buildings. Most of the property taxes you're paying, by the way, are going to the schools, to the county, and to the city. Not in that order. The school's definitely number one, though. So both houses have passed a 1.5 mill levy cut to the state mill levy. Now, we have to replace that money because the Supreme Court somehow is now in charge of how much money we spend on schools. So if we take money out for property taxes, we have to replace that money with income tax and sales tax money, right? The rest of the general fund. But the schools don't like that because that 1.5 mils grows every year with the rate of the valuation increases, which has been, here it's been like double digits. It's the first year in forever that our valuations haven't gone up by like 10 or 15%. And so it goes up really fast. If we start paying them out of the general fund, it's going to go up with inflation, which is about to get really, really low because we got Donald Trump in office now, and we're drilling for oil, and we're getting prices under control. And so the schools don't like that. And so the people fighting that are, unfortunately, the people that we're paying to lobby the legislature not to lower your taxes. The Kansas Association of School Boards. Just about every school in the state, including, unfortunately, our school districts, pays to be a member of the Kansas Association of School Boards. And then the Kansas Association of School Boards comes up to the legislature and lobbies us not to cut taxes because they want the money for the schools, right? KNEA, which is sort of indirectly paid through dues that we pay, from the pay that we pay to teachers, they come up and they lobby us not to cut the property taxes. Kansas Association, or the Kansas League of Municipalities, which a lot of our municipalities pay to be members of, including Leavenworth, they come up and they lobby us not to cut your taxes. And then the Kansas Counties Association, County Commissioners Association, they all come up and they lobby us not to cut taxes. And so we're still cutting taxes, okay? So, but I just want you to understand kind of the fight that's going on up there against cutting taxes. And you might think, well, golly, who cares if schools are lobbying against it? We work for all the people, not just the schools. Well, yeah, here I've got one full school district, Fort Leavenworth. I've got part of one school district, Leavenworth, and then I've got part of another school district, Pleasant Ridge, Easton. Well, out west, where the legislators have 5 counties and 15 school districts and more cows than people, the number one employer in their district is the government, the school, the county, and the cities. And when we have a tax bill, they call a school snow day and have all the teachers sit at their desks and call legislators and say, you better not cut property taxes. You better not, that goes for a lot of things we want to do in schools. And so it's folks that are rural legislators that are very conservative on most issues. When it comes to taxes or it comes to fixing our schools, they're lobbied really hard in their own districts, and it's tough to bring them along. But I'm pretty sure that we've got a critical mass this year to get the mill levy cut. And the reason I know that is because, the governor, before we came back, she was saying, we can't cut taxes, we gotta wait and see if we've got enough money, which is interesting because when we're not in session, we beat estimates every month for revenues, but as soon as we get in session, all of a sudden we're missing all of our revenue estimates. It's almost like the office that does that estimation works for the governor. I'm not sure. That might have something to do with it. But anyways, she was saying that she was going to veto any tax cut. Well, by the time she showed up for the State of the Union address, she was talking about, well, I'm willing to consider a responsible tax cut. So she knows that if she wants her lieutenant governor to succeed her as governor and give her her third term, she has to be on board for tax cuts. So I think we've won the battle on we're going to cut property taxes. But that, folks, I'm not gonna snow you. That's the Band-Aid, right? That's the immediate, to fix the immediate bleeding. The ultimate solution to fixing our property tax problem is the valuations, right? Because valuations go up by double digits. Doesn't matter if you cut the mill levy a quarter mil, your property taxes are still gonna go up, double-digit percentages. There are two different, and the wrinkle of fixing that is that somebody thought it was a great idea to put property valuations in the Constitution. It's not in statute, it's actually written into the Constitution how we do valuation of property. So if you want to change how you value property, you have to do a constitutional amendment, which requires a 2/3 vote in the House, 2/3 vote in the Senate, then it goes on the ballot, and then you get to vote for it. And if 50% plus one person votes for it, it changes the Constitution. So we have to have a constitutional amendment in order to fix valuations. There are two separate amendments that are currently kind of in the pipeline for fixing the valuation problem. There's a Senate version and there's a House version. I will tell you for nothing, when this goes on Facebook, I'm going to get yelled at by my speaker, and I don't care because I work for y'all. I love the Senate version. The Senate version caps valuation increases at 3% for your home. The home you live in, the value cannot go up more than 3% unless you change the square footage or you sell the house, and then the next person will pay whatever the new value is. That will fix our homeowner property tax problem. Okay, it just will. And you're going to hear a lot of, well, but, that will fix for you living in your house. If you're a senior and you're living on a fixed income and you're about to have to move out of your house because you can't afford the property taxes because they were more than your payment used to be when you were paying payments on your house, that will fix your problem. Okay, that will fix it tomorrow. There are some folks that don't like that either. The ranchers and the farmers out west, where they've got more cows than people, and they've got their main industry, not their main employer, but their main industry is agriculture. They're afraid that if that goes into effect, the counties still have to run their budgets. And when they can't raise the valuations on the homesteads, they're going to go after the agricultural land to make the money to make their budgets. And so they're fighting it tooth and nail. They have an alternative solution, which is in the House, which, again, I like the Senate version. I'm just telling you what's going on in Topeka, okay? So if you got any food, don't throw it at me. The House version mirrors what we do for agricultural land. So agricultural land, a long time ago, they got valuations changed for themselves. So instead of whatever the market value that is that year on their property, which is governed by how much their land can make, instead of it spiking or dropping every year, because 1 year soybeans are worth this much and the next year they're worth that much, and so if there's a mad run on soybeans, all of a sudden your property taxes go through the roof. So a long time ago, they got the legislature to change valuations for agricultural property so that it's leveled out over several years. It's like a 5 or 6 year rolling average. So it kind of smooths out the peaks and valleys so that people don't get hit all of a sudden with a huge property tax bill. The House version of fixing property valuations is that. Okay, their version of how your home's going to be valued is doing a rolling average over several years. It's both a good idea and not a good idea. It's not a good idea if you're talking about only the homesteads, right? Because if the valuations go up 10% or 15% every year, your rolling average is around 10 or 15% if that happens for 4 or 5 years. But it will include houses besides homesteads. So if somebody's got a rental property, their property values are also going to be leveled. And you're saying, well, golly, they got money for more than one house. Why should they get a break? Well, it's not for them, it's for the renter, right? Because if we do if we do the 3% cap on all the homesteads, all the rental properties are gonna keep going up. And, you know, the county, the city, the school, they still gotta pay the bills, so they're gonna not cut the mill levy as much, or even raise it, because they gotta make budget, and it's gonna disproportionately impact all those rental properties, and it's gonna get passed right on to the renter, right? So, again, Senate version, Pat Proctor's on board with, and I'm gonna vote for it if it comes to the floor, and if Lance Neely gets up from his desk to go to the bathroom, I'm gonna vote for it twice, because okay? But that's the discussion that's going on. And, you know, I gave up a long time ago predicting how these things are gonna break and how they're gonna turn out. So I can't tell you how it's gonna turn out. I can only tell you what I'm fighting for. I've been fighting for that 3% cap for 4 years, 4.5 years now. So that's what I'm gonna be fighting for. So that's what, yeah.
You take questions now or at the end?
I can do either.
What about the, hey, when you move into your house, you know, you pay that property tax, and then that's the property tax you pay every year until you sell the house, then the new, you know, if you sell it for more, then the person that moves in now has this property tax.
That's what the cap is, essentially, if it was 0%, right? The Senate bill, if the number was 0 instead of 3%, it would be exactly what you described. But kind of negotiations, because in order to get enough senators to get to 2/3 over there, the number they picked was 3%, which ain't 0%. Yeah, I'm with you. You know, I don't know if you remember when the candidate who's no longer burdened by what has been was running. She was talking about a tax on unrealized gains, right? All these rich people that have investments, we're going to tax them on their unrealized gains. You remember that? Well, that's what property taxes is, right? Because if the value of your house goes up 15% according to the assessor, it's not like you're going to get that 15% to pay the property tax bill, right? You have to pay property taxes on a value that you haven't sold your house to get the money for, right? And so the 0%, which, you know, like California did a Prop 13 to do 0%, that's where I would be if I were like king for a day and could do it how I want. But to get 27 senators, which is what they needed for the constitutional amendment, 3% is what they fell out on. So another piece, before I leave this, because I don't want to forget, something that I personally was campaigning on, something I promised you I was going to be fighting for if you sent me back, was disabled veteran property tax relief. You know, last year we got the governor a bill. It had two parts to it. It had if you were 100% permanent and total, or you were totally disabled due to unemployability, you could get a 75% exemption on your property taxes, which would be returned to you as a rebate. And you don't have to make anything, right? If you make zero income that's reportable on your income taxes, you're just going to get I guess you call it a bait instead of a rebate, right? You just get a check, not a refund. It doesn't. But if you owe taxes, they would take your income taxes out of it, and then you would get a refund of whatever was left. The other piece of it was if you were 50% disabled, or if you were a senior, 65 or older, whether you were a veteran or not, disabled or not, you would get and your house was under 500,000 and you made less than 80,000, but it excluded Social Security, disability payments, military retirement, state retirement, were all excluded. Basically, everybody in my district. If you're somebody who owns a house in my district, you are going to get your property taxes frozen at the 2022 level. So anything that your property taxes went up over the 2022 level, you get that rebate from the state, right? And I don't like the rebate. I would rather that like you just didn't pay your property taxes, but I got to bring 105 counties along with all of their representatives, and a few counties, including our own, was screaming bloody murder about it and came up and testified against it. So we had to do it as a rebate. So we sent that to the governor. but it was bundled with some stuff that I didn't care for either, and the governor used that as an excuse to veto the whole bill. So we got no disabled veteran property tax relief last year. Fast forward to this year. So this year, as soon as I got elected, because the revisers won't talk to you until you get elected because they don't know if they have to do work for you or not, because they don't know if you're coming back. But as soon as I got elected, I went up to Topeka, I sat down with the tax reviser, and we drafted the first half of that bill, the 100%. I added not just 100% permanent total, but also 100%. Okay, so if you're 100% disabled, 100% permanent total, or I'm going to screw up the acronym, TDIU, it's totally disabled due to individual unemployability. I got it right. So if you're one of those things, you get a 75% rebate. I don't qualify for that because I'm not 100% disabled. I know some people in this room are not 100% disabled. You got to get your foot in the door, or nose under the tent. Pick your metaphor. You got to get something on paper, because what I tried to do the first time was come with the whole thing. The number was 80 million, and I got laughed out of the room. And so you start with a small number. It's about, depending on who you ask, it's between 12 and 18 million. I know I've been in Topeka too long, I call that a small number. But compared to the big tax bill, the big $500 million tax bill, it's a relatively small number. So you start with that, you get it in the statute. And then next year, you come back and you say, hey, how about instead of 75%, we do 100% exempt? It's only $4 million. Then they do it. And then the next year, you come back and you're like, hey, how about we do 90% instead of 100% disabled? It's only $4 million. Just give a mouse a cookie, right? Before you know it, you got like everything that you wanted originally, okay? And so it's not everything I want, but it gets it in the book so that we can continue to expand on it. That bill has had a hearing in the House Tax Committee. It's really frustrating for me because last year, or the last 2 years, this was a mile a minute, man. I was giving you updates all the time. Hey, come to Topeka, we're doing this, we're doing that. Well, now everybody wants it. So it's not really a fight anymore. And so I don't really have a lot of updates on it. It's sitting in the House Tax Committee. We're waiting for the big tax bill from the House Tax Committee, and when they pass that, I'm trying to get them to put my bill in the big tax bill. So the governor's gonna veto it, but we're gonna have the entire House leadership and Senate leadership all lobbying to pass our bill. So they'll be lobbying for my bill. And so I know it's frustrating. Because like last year, I was giving you updates all the time. I just think it's silly to give you an update every week. It's sitting in the House Tax Committee waiting for the big tax bill. But that's what's going on. And I guarantee you there's going to be a big House tax bill. You don't have to worry about that. And I'm going to be fighting like the third monkey trying to get on the ark to get that bill into the big tax bill. Okay? So that's what's going on with property taxes. If you have additional questions, I'd be happy to talk about it at the end. I want to talk about two other things that are going on locally that we have a kind of a touch point on in Topeka that I've been getting asked about a lot. So maybe I can head off some angry questions. So I head off some questions and we can talk about other stuff you want to talk about. The first one, you may have seen on Facebook, there's this idea that we're going to do a 1% earnings tax. Has anybody heard about this? Okay, so there's this idea that is supported by some counties that the legislature should give the counties the authority to by a vote of the people, to put it on the ballot, to have it basically a 1% income tax. So when you pay your state income tax, anything that you made in that county, you're going to pay an additional 1% on what you made in that county in your income taxes. And it's location based, right? So if you work at, I lost my wife. If you work at Bontai, if you work at Bontai, she's in the kitchen, I just can't get her out. If you work at Bontai Restaurant, but you live in Wyandotte County or you live in Platte City, you're gonna pay Leavenworth County 1%. They call it an earnings tax, but it's an income tax. If you work in Wyandotte, you're gonna pay Wyandotte 1%. I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And if it comes to the floor, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say that it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and then I'm going to vote against it. The idea, what the selling point for it is, well, if you give us this authority, we can cut property taxes. And David Haley, who's a senator from Wyandotte, went to the Senate Tax Committee where it's being heard, and he said, well, if you give us this authority, that's $50 million. We can cut our property taxes in half. But while he's saying that in the committee, the mayor of Wyandotte is telling all his voters, don't worry, I'm going to give everybody who lives in Wyandotte a rebate of their income taxes, so only people who live someplace else and work in Wyandotte are going to pay the earnings tax. Which, by the way, I can count on, you give me 30 seconds, I can name 6 people in my district that live within a block of me who work down in Wyandotte. So that's BS. Because they can't vote. They don't get to vote in Wyandotte, but they're going to have to pay your taxes. And oh yeah, by the way, he's not going to get $50 million if he only taxes people who don't work in Wyandotte, so they're not going to cut their property taxes in half. And as a matter of fact, there's nothing in the bill that says they have to cut their property taxes at all. So they could tax you that 1% and then just keep the mill levy the same and keep the property taxes going up. There's nothing in there that requires them to cut the property tax. So I'm a big fat no on that one. So I don't know where all my colleagues are, because usually we don't start talking about a bill until it comes to our side of the house and it's kind of, slated to get on the floor because we got so many to keep track of. But I'll just tell you that I'm voting no for it if it comes over. And I can talk about that more too if you want. The other thing that I've been hearing a lot about and that I've been getting asked a lot of questions about is about the Leavenworth Detention Center and the housing of illegal immigrants. Okay, so I'm going to take you back in the Wayback Machine here to the long ago days of March last year. There was a plan where Core Civic was going to contract with the county to house illegal immigrants who were awaiting dispensation in court of their, are they asylees, do they get asylum, do they get to stay in the United States? I thought that was not a good idea, and when I found out about it, I shared it with you, and I found that many of you thought it wasn't a good idea, and so we all kind of, screamed from mountaintops and got that shut down. The reason that they had to contract through the county is because Joe Biden had, way back when he started his term, and one of the first days, had signed an executive order that would have required, that said that private companies could not guard prisoners. Okay? So, like Core Civic at Lansing Correctional Facility, they don't actually guard prisoners, they maintain the facility. So Core Civic operates their maintained facility, but Department of Corrections people actually guard the prisoners, right? Well, at the Leavenworth Detention Center, their mission had been to hold federal prisoners on behalf of the Marshals Service who were awaiting trial in federal court in Kansas City. And that was their mission, right? Well, that all got shut down the day that Joe Biden signed that order. And so they had been looking for, how do we keep from going bankrupt and, keep from our shareholders all dumping our stock. And so around the country, they had been doing these agreements on immigration, on housing illegal immigrants. I hated that plan. I opposed that plan. I know a lot of y'all actually showed up at the commission meetings and talked to our county commissioners, and they voted it down, and it didn't happen. The plan that is in the works right now is different in 2 ways. And the reason I know is because when I first started hearing about this in January, I started talking to Core Civic. Because the last time I found out the way you found out when Fox 4 broke the news. I told them, I'm not finding out that way again. I'm going to be out there, with a group, blocking the doors if you don't tell me what's going on before you start making plans. And so at first they didn't have a lot of plans. So really, I think I put in my newsletter a couple weeks ago, that's really the first concrete plans that I had to tell you about. But the plan that they're working on now differs from the old plan in 2 ways. First, they're not contracting with the county or the city They are going to get a special use permit from the city, but they're going to be paid directly by the federal government. Because Donald Trump, when he got in office, one of the first things he did is that executive order from Joe Biden about private prison companies not guard prisoners. He put it in the paper shredder and he signed one that said they could, and we're sending it. And so now Core Civic can guard prisoners. The second big difference between the plan that they're talking about now and the plan that I was up in arms about and y'all were up in arms about, and this is my red line, okay? If this changes in any way, I'm going to be out there with you forming a human chain trying to block them from bringing people in. But the plan right now, the people that are going to be housed at the Leavenworth Detention Center, the only trip they're taking outside those walls is in a bus to the airport to go back to the country that they came from.
Yeah.
They're all deportees, okay? The last plan, if the judge decided, yes, you have asylum, they could walk out the front door. Now, Core Civic said, well, we'll sign an agreement that says that we'll take them someplace else to drop them off. But they're free people. As soon as the judge says you have legal residency, they can say, no, I want to stay in Leavenworth. And they'd have to let them right out the front door. So that is not the case with this plan. This plan, there ain't nobody walking out the front door except in shackles to get on a bus to go to the airport, to go back to their country of origin. Okay? So I'm cautiously, support is a strong word. I am not in opposition to the plan right now because it'll mean 350 jobs for a lot of people that have been, since that executive order, working in other places, temporary duty, or at other facilities. It'll bring them back to their families here in Leavenworth, and they can work in that detention center. So like I said, support is a strong word. We don't have anything on paper, and I'm going to be very curious to see what's on paper. But I'm not nearly as upset about this plan because it's about holding these folks to deport them. I'm going to stop there and start answering questions because the hands are going up. And Marywood, my treasurer, has to get the first question because she has my checkbook. Okay. Go ahead.
And I heard about that plan, and I am in agreement with that. But if we find out that it's on paper and it's not, it's the second thing you talked about, how they can release them into the community.
Yeah.
How can we find out about that immediately? Is that something so we can, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, well, part of the solution is going to be that the people who are working in the facility are going to be living in our community, and the folks that right now are off working in other facilities are from here and are going to come back here to man that facility. And so they're going to be us, right? They're going to be our neighbors who are working there. So if they're not doing what they say they're going to do, this is Facebook age. We're going to find out about it. But really, honestly, it's about the kind of detainee that shows up. These are not, people that got the CBP-1 app in Venezuela or Nicaragua and filled it out and got a plane trip to the United States. They're just waiting for their get-out-of-jail-free card from a judge. These are folks that have been detained by ICE and are scheduled for deportation. They're going to be housed here awaiting deportation. But I'm with you, cautiously listening. Mr. Higgins, sorry.
Just to kind of clarify a little bit, you said they're going to get a special use permit. Maybe.
Yeah, they're asking for one.
They have submitted a request for a special use permit, which would allow them to operate it the way they want to operate it, as a holding facility for illegal aliens that are headed out the door. But to get that special use permit takes some time first. It has to go through a process. It doesn't come straight to us and we do it. It first has to go to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission goes through a series that has to study a bit about whether it meets certain criteria, and then decide whether they want to send it to us recommending, and they have to send it to us one way or the other to the City Commission, either recommending, yeah, we think you should give them this special use permit, or no, we don't think you should, right? But when we get it, it doesn't mean, just because they say, yeah, do it, let them have it, doesn't mean that we're going to do that. We can do either one of three things. We can approve it, we can deny it, or we can say it's going back to the planning commission for consideration of these other things that you didn't consider. And then that sends it back for another few months. You start to catch my drift. So you will be able to come and there'll be a public hearing. The city commission has to hold a public hearing on the special use permit. Watch the news, watch the Leavenworth Times. They always have I think they call it on the agenda. Right? Watch what they have. Usually it's on Tuesday. You know, then.
Watch my newsletter. Watch my newsletter, I'll let you know when this stuff's going on.
There will be public hearings, and you'll be allowed to speak for it or against it.
So,
if you are so inclined, could you give us how you lean with the information you have right now?
I will tell you the same thing that I told
50 people who called.
somebody else who contacted me with a couple of the folks from Core Civic in the office with them. You know, and they said, we just kind of wanted to know if, you see anything wrong with this, blah, blah, blah. And I told them, I have not seen the proposal. And to this date, I have not seen the proposal. I don't know what they say they're gonna do. But there's a lot of things to be considered. For one thing, you put a bunch of people in there, who's gonna do the police calls? And I don't mean picking up garbage, right? Who's gonna answer it when there's a problem and the police are needed? Who's going to do it when there's a fire and the fire protection is going to be needed? What about medical emergencies, right? Then the county gets into it, right? It can cost more money. I need to see all of this stuff laid out, before I'm going to say yes, no, or anything else. So I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer to whether I support it or not, because I don't have the information.
So
he might have seen something.
Yeah, and I haven't seen anything you haven't seen. I've just had the conversation with them. So the other thing I'd say is the ACLU is against it, and the Sisters Charity is against it, and there's some other. So that kind of makes me want to hear them out. So Steve Clay and then Rachel.
Just quick, I'd like to go back to the 3% increase property tax plan. That 3% increase, what's the baseline going to be? What you originally paid for the house?
Yeah.
Or like what it's worth today?
It's the 3% is last year, right? So whenever y'all vote on the whenever it's on the ballot and you vote for it, it goes into effect in the Constitution. The next assessment year, they won't be able to go up more than 3% from the assessment year before. And then the year after that, they can't go up more than 3% more than the assessed value from the year before, and so on and so on. Rachel?
If they did.
By the way, don't leave. Please don't leave. Both of you. Please don't leave. Okay. Sorry.
Our chance to go to the.
Okay. Yeah.
But we'll be back.
If you need somebody to carry your bags, I can. Yeah. No.
We'll take it. We're in the house with room. Come visit.
Okay.
But the thing is, if you got the special use permit and they did it the way magically, it's exactly how you've been told, and they actually tell the truth, it all works out. If they decide to then change it to back to what the one you all hated, where they put people in there and then release them in town, could they hold the special use and take it away so it doesn't become?
That's a great question. We need to find the answer out to.
Yes.
I would say that if you've had, I'm not going to do Ed's job for him because he's awesome at his job. But if they grant a special use permit, it should be on a time basis so we can review it. So that if
it's usually that, but the city can pull back a special use permit when the city sees fit.
Okay.
Excellent.
Other questions? Chris?
Going back to the public school thing.
Yeah.
I believe Linda McMahon was confirmed today.
Yep.
So obviously we all know.
Hopefully to dismantle the agency.
Yeah.
God willing.
So if this comes back to the state, Sarah Huckabee, and I know she's a different governor, but apparently,
Yes, she is.
apparently in her state,
Then
they
they're
started a program or something that allowed school choice.
Yeah.
Has anybody, and
Yeah,
Has talked about any of that?
so that's one of those things where we really get into a fist fight with the rural legislators. Because you hear all the time, this whole school choice thing, it's just about vouchers for rich people. Rich people don't need vouchers. Rich people already have school choice. They can afford to send their kids to other school. My neighbors that are trapped in Leavenworth School District, which is the bottom fifth in the state, they can't afford to send their kids to Xavier, or they would, and there'd be nobody going to Leavenworth. I mean, honestly. And so, but out west, where they got more cows than people, and every legislator has 20 school districts or 10, 15 school districts, that's where our fight is. We have to have a veto-proof majority. I'm praying that we have a Republican governor in 2 years, and we don't need 84 votes to get some of these really important things done. Because school choice fixes our schools. That's what the other side doesn't want you to hear. School choice, competition, fixes our schools. And because they have to compete for the students. And you see it happening in real time right now. Because last year we weren't able to get school choice, but we were able to get open enrollment. And so now you can take your kid to any school district you want to take them to if you're willing to drive them there. And what immediately happened when we did open enrollment is Leavenworth's enrollment started declining because kids are going out to Pleasant Ridge, kids going to Lansing, and if they're military connected, they're going to Fort Leavenworth, which is the best school district in the state by outcomes. And so Leavenworth right now, Leavenworth School District is wringing their hands and saying, oh, we don't have, we're $5 million short on our budget this year. How are we going to, what are we going to cut and how are we going to raise taxes? Well, first of all, they're sitting on $13 million, so they're not $5 million. There's a place I'd start. But second of all, the reason that their budget or that their revenue is $5 million less than it was the year before is because people are voting with their feet because they have an option. And they're either going to have to fix their school, or they're not going to have a school district anymore because everybody's going to go someplace else. So, and I think they'll fix their schools because, property tax, us taxpayers are paying for that school to be good. We're not going to pay for an empty school. So, that's why it isn't already done. I think if we had a Republican governor and we only needed 63 votes, we could probably get it done. Yes, ma'am.
What is the estimated turnover for housing these illegals? Are they expect to come in within a couple of weeks, they're going to be moved out? And
We just don't have that kind of detail. And the way it was described to me, they're basically just awaiting their plane because they're going to charter a plane. Okay, we got this many people going to Venezuela. We got a plane on the tarmac, get in the bus and go. That's how it was described to me. But, we like Ed, I haven't seen anything written down. So, listen. Chris?
You mentioned just a minute ago that competition fixes our schools, and I absolutely agree with that. Competition also fixes political corruption. And I'm very concerned, you didn't bring it up tonight, but a bill that you ran through your committee and just passed the House today, and one prior to that, I believe it was last week, introduces the concept that there's not going to be any contribution limits to state party committees, which to me is a disaster waiting to happen. I will give you a little anecdote. In 2012, my firm worked for a candidate over on the Missouri side, which did not have campaign contribution limits at the time. He raised $885,000 in 3 checks. Folks, if that happens in Kansas, and don't let them tell you that this is not going to happen because it's going to go through the parties, that we're not going to be able to buy candidates. That's exactly what's going to happen if that provision of 2206, and I believe it's 2206.
It's 2054.
2054, I'm sorry, goes through. There are many provisions in 2054 that I can support wholeheartedly. It's well beyond time to raise the limits, contribution limits that haven't been raised since the 1990s. But if we introduce this idea that a fat cat, big donor, and they exist in the George Soros world and they exist in the Koch world, let's be real frank about it, the rest of us our voices are going to be drowned out. You and I can give $50 to Pat, we can give it to Ed or whoever, and try to influence our political system. But if we go down this path of allowing the big dogs to just basically take over our politics, I'm sorry, there's not going to be any point to have these meetings anymore.
So, sorry, I respectfully disagree, and I'd like to tell you why if I could. So first of all, the bill that we're talking about, 2054, it does remove the limits on how much money you can give to the party, but it does not remove the limits on how much the party can give to an individual candidate. The limits that, please let me finish, sir. The limits that what the party can give to me are the same limits that you can give to me or you can give to me. And by the way, if you'd like to donate, no, please let me finish, sir, please. Okay, I saw your email. Please let me finish, okay? When I have this conversation about campaign finance, the thing that is most frequently said to me is that we've got to get PAC money out of politics. Okay, PACs, but the way a PAC works is some candidate can only raise $1,000 or $500 per individual. So they establish a PAC and they establish a nonprofit, 501c4. And then they can raise money for both of them. They just can't talk to the PAC about how they're spending money on it. Okay? They can go, when they go and they talk to some back cap donor who's got, flies around in a jet and doesn't have a house, they say, you can give $500 to me, but write that $30,000 check or $500,000 check to my PAC, and then write that other $100,000 check to my charity. And then the charity the PAC has to report how much money each person gave and where it spends the money. But that nonprofit does not have to report to anybody who's donating. And so they take a big, huge sum of what you've heard the phrase dark money, that's dark money. They take that money and they give the unlimited amount to the PAC. And now, we don't know who is donating to that candidate. And you get the appearance of, you get the appearance of quid pro quo, which is, somebody's paying a candidate, buying and paying for a candidate. So PACs are bad. PACs are a bad thing. And every time I have this conversation, people tell me, get PACs out of politics. The rules for a party right now is that a party can take, I think it's $5,000 per individual, and can take, I think it's like $10,000 from the national party, or maybe it's 15, okay? And then they can donate any amount to a candidate, okay? There's an unlimited amount. They can, write a $50,000 check. My second opponent, my first opponent got like a $15,000 check from the Leavenworth County Democrat Party. My second one got like a $19,000. They can write unlimited. But if you're a candidate, you would rather they gave the money to the PAC, right? Because, I can't talk to the PAC about what it is I need, but they can take unlimited money, and they can spend unlimited amount of money on me, okay? So 2054, the idea of the bill is to bring parties on par in power with the PAC, so that people are giving money to parties instead of PACs. And also, the reason we think that people will give the money to the party instead of to the PAC is because a candidate can coordinate with the party. So if I've only got $5,000 left in my account, please donate to my campaign. If I only got $5,000 left in my account and I need mailers in my district, I can tell the party, the Republican House Campaign Committee, or the state party, probably the state party, Republican House Campaign Committee, hey, I don't have any money left for mailers. Could you do some mailers to my swing voters in my district? And they can do that. But because they can't take unlimited money, people are giving the money to the PACs instead of to the party. I would contend, and I know you disagree with me, Chris, I would contend that it is better for a party to have the money than it is for the PAC to have the money. And the reason is because we just all went out to Goodland, several of us just went out to Goodland, and we, as delegates from the state to the state party convention, selected by our district delegate, our district convention, who were selected by the county party to go up there, we picked the leader of the party. And, in the Republican House Campaign Committee, all the Republican House members, they get together and they vote on who's the leadership of the Republican House Campaign Committee. okay? So it's your representatives electing them. They are by design and by nature more accountable than a PAC, who is set up by one candidate or a group of candidates, and they pick somebody they trust to spend money on them, and they just go.
What the problem with this is, it's going to result in party bosses choosing who gets to run and serve in office and how long. And if you're an outside challenger who believes that you need to primary somebody, good luck, because the party boys are going to have received their huge check from whoever the big donor is that has to maintain their level of control over what the legislature does. And they're going to say, sorry, now, yeah, you can run, you've got the right to run, but the reality is going to be...
Well, the party, I don't know.
Hussein's correct. Yeah, you can run, but it's guaranteed that the incumbent's going to win.
Okay, I'm in the Republican Party. I'm not in the Democrat Party, so I can't speak for the Democrat Party. But in the Republican Party, the state GOP, and in the Republican House Campaign Committee, our bylaws and our Constitution says that they can't support a candidate if it's a contested primary until after the primary.
Well,
that's what it says,
that's what it
Chris.
says. That's not how it's practiced.
Okay, so, but that's why the bill has just passed the House, and that's why we're doing what we're doing.
I'm just here to tell you, it's going to be, the people of Missouri wisely voted that down in 2016. Thankfully, they came along with Amendment 2 and voted it down and reinstated some reasonable campaign contribution limits. I think you're fighting corruption, and you're empowering party bosses to basically say, you can be involved, you can't be involved. You're in the club, you're not in the club.
I read your email, Chris. I just disagree with you. I'm sorry. I disagree
with that. I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll tell you, Chris, if I were to receive a whole bunch of money and someone told me, Pat's an incumbent, we want him out, we want, Maria Cox in there, okay? I'm going to give money to Pat, $10,000, and I'm going to give money to Maria, $10,000. I can't pick which one because of the rules.
And in the bill that we're passing now, you'll only be able to give each of us $1,000 because the limits will double, and you'll only be able to give the same thing that an individual will be able to.
And Pat, how much money have I given you as a party?
Not enough.
Zero.
We need to talk about that later.
Any candidate? Well,
Yeah. No, but
as soon as we grow
Yeah.
our coffers more, then we're able to do that.
We need to move on from this, but I'm of the mind that the county parties are a platform for people to get involved, meet the candidates that they like, and if they like them, support them. And as a candidate, it's a platform for me to be responsive to the people that I work for, meet y'all, and if somebody's excited about my campaign, get them in on my campaign team, volunteering, to help us win, help Republicans get elected. But all right, Stacey, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Pat, something else that people don't realize too is on Core Civic. Back when they were operational, they were paying like $900,000 in real estate taxes, and now, last 2024, they're down to $430,000, and I'm sure this year they're going to be even lower. So there's been a loss of revenue from taxes.
Yeah. And I didn't say that because that's the excuse they used last time with the terrible plan, but that is also true. That is also true. If they're doing something that's not hurting the community or even helping the community and we're getting more property taxes from it, yeah. Any other questions? Wow, we just brought everybody down with campaign finance. Okay, thank you. Thank you guys, appreciate it.